Hey friends, my name is Richie and welcome back to my channel, Gender Not Found. So just when I think this book is going to zig, it zags. Just when I think I've got it all figured out, it just goes ahead and takes a huge left turn in a huge turn into left field, and that is exactly what happened in the last video. Everything was going fine. I thought we were over all the craziness, but then the author of this book introduces who I guess is gonna be the is gonna be the main antagonist in this book, it seems like, unless another turn is taken into left field and something happens. I don't know. It probably will. It keeps on. But I thought like the worst thing that was gonna happen in this book was gang violence, but then they decided to introduce this big bad guy. Um and they all just almost died, and they didn't die. Obviously, otherwise that would end the book. But I hope there's a happy ending to this because it's getting like intense. It's a lot. Anyway, it's just a lot. And I got my window open right now. It's so nice I can actually have it open. And it rained earlier, so there's like that really nice good smell, the after it rains smell. I don't really know how to explain it. It's like a damp smell. It's like, I don't know. Smells really nice though. And I took some sinus medication, like some oral sinus medication. I'm planning to spray my nose later, but I'm planning to spray it during the night. And I'm gonna try the medication that we picked up from the pharmacy because I forgot to try it yesterday, I guess. I I just got really caught up, and you guys know I didn't record anything yesterday. So I didn't record yesterday, and I didn't record on Saturday either, but I never record on Saturday because I just end up spending the Saturday with my mom. But um, but I didn't record yesterday either because I had kind of a rough day Saturday, and I just needed a day off, so it was my day off, and usually Saturday is my day off during the week, but I and Sunday I had to take a day off too, and an old ex-boyfriend got back in contact with me, so I needed to deal with that, and it was a lot, and I've been dealing with the whole Rigby situation too. I don't know when I'm gonna have more updates on that. Anyway, um. So, this book is insane. And just like I've been really stressed out, and also, I'm now barred from the house indefinitely because my sister is there on the weekends and, whatever. Usually during the weekends we're at my apartment, and I can't have Reese's at my apartment right now because of the summer, and I have to have the air conditioning on during the day, so it affects the consistency of my Reese's, and it makes it a certain, like, I like it soft and creamy, but then it's all dried out when I go to eat it, and the peanut butter is hardened, and I don't really know how. I hope I'm explaining it well enough, but this Saturday it's only going up to 17 degrees, so I'm probably not going to need my AC on, so my plan is to bring Reese's home and just eat them like right away, like same day, and then we can watch. Me and my mom can finally watch a movie together because I've been waiting for like, I don't know, probably 5 or 6 weeks by this point to watch this movie. First my mom was sick with COVID, and then all that stuff happened with my sister, and everything, and then with the whole situation just so. Yeah, that was all. I can't. Seriously, I like can't stop freaking yawning. I just end up yawning all the freaking time. I don't know why I yawn when I'm recording my intro like 10,000 times, but then I'm fine when I'm actually reading the book. It's so annoying. I don't understand what the difference is. It's frustrating. Just like let me get through my intro. Jeez. Anyway, so yeah, so Saturday was really stressful, so I just took Sunday off. But now I'm back, and I'm gonna try and record 4 chapters tonight, and because that's how many this video is supposed to have in it. I'm gonna have 4 chapters in this video, chapter 77 to 80. So, anyway, so I'm gonna just try and oh, F off. I'm gonna just try and record all 4 chapters. I was gonna do 9, but then I decided that's too much. And tomorrow I'll try and do the video that has 5 chapters in it. Or like the day after. Tomorrow might just be just uploading. Tomorrow I'm probably gonna end up going to the movies because I usually go to the movies on Tuesday. So today I'm probably gonna edit, and then tomorrow might just be more editing, and then I'm gonna post some videos tomorrow. But I'm not gonna like do any actual recording, depending on when I'm supposed to leave and when I get back. And on Wednesday I'm gonna do some more recording. My mom and I are meeting with some kind of support worker, so there's that, and then I'm gonna just I guess we'll just like after that I'll probably record some stuff. So I may or may not record tomorrow. I'll see. I might just be uploading. But anyway, I can't wait to now that I'm done freaking yawning, I'm gonna read more of this book. And we're gonna find out what happens next because this has gotten insane. I thought everything was over, but I guess not. Alright. Chapter 77. The only thing to fear is heights, darkness, sunlight, water, loneliness, fire, spiders, rats, snakes. This list of things in which one can fear is endless, an endless list of possibilities that in an instant could potentially turn even the bravest man into a coward. Some say that to face your fears makes you strong, that fear in the right circumstances can become bravery. For Fiona, that had not at all been the case. Even though she was out of the elevator, in her dreams she was still trapped in the glass box, hundreds of feet in the air while it came careening down to earth. Waking with a gasp, the blonde sat up, feeling a sweat beaded down the back of her neck. Closing her eyes, she took a deep breath, counting backwards, feeling nothing but exhaustion. Sleep had not come easily since that night a few weeks ago. Simone had taught her that when she was panicking, if she found something to focus her attention on solely for the next few moments, usually it would pass as only a fleeting glimpse of panic. 10. Listen to the birds. 9. The sunlight looks so beautiful coming through the curtains. 8. I love that spring's here. 7. I wonder where Cake is. 6. Crash, smash. Gasping, gasping immediately, the blonde jumped to her feet, opening the door to the bedroom. That hadn't sounded good at all. Hurrying down the stairs, Fiona noticed how it seemed unusually bright in the living room, though unfortunately she hadn't noticed it in time to avoid the glass at the bottom of the stairs. Yelping in pain, she jumped back on the higher step, keeping her now throbbing foot off the floor. Kate, come here! The blonde called, sitting now as she pulled the shard of glass from the bottom of her foot, wincing as she did so. Her foot was bleeding, but from the looks of it, she wouldn't need stitches. Climbing the steps, Fiona grabbed an old pair of sneakers, donning them before going back downstairs. Kate, where are you? As she walked, Fiona could hear the crunch of glass beneath her feet. Entering the kitchen, the blonde was greeted with a soft meow, and looking down, she spotted Cake puffed up in fear underneath the kitchen table. Fiona let out a sigh of relief when she spotted her. Hi, my girl, come here. Fiona said, kneeling careful to avoid the glass as she reached for the cream and orange cat, who slowly approached her. Carefully, Fiona checked her for any kind of injury, and sighed in utter relief when she found none. "I'm so glad you're okay," she whispered, nuzzling the cat, who purred loudly. Fiona didn't dare go near the windows, and after a quick search of the house, found a letter from Marshall saying he'd be back in the next hour or so. Hurrying up the stairs, Fiona closed the cake in her room, grabbing her phone in the process as she dialed Marshall. Her heart was still pounding from the sound of the glass shattering as he answered the phone. "Hey, Fee, what's... Marshall, somebody just smashed out our windows." Marshall had been browsing ring selections. He wanted Fiona's engagement ring to be perfect. He'd been so proud of himself for sneaking out without waking the blonde for once. Usually, the moment he was out of bed, she was awake. For someone who could sleep like the dead in a car, once she was in a bed, Fiona seemed to be the lightest sleeper in the world. Looking around, he'd spotted a beautiful diamond in a display, and just as he waved the jeweler over so he could look at it, his phone rang. Pulling it out, he glanced at the screen, taking note of Fiona's name with a grin. "Can I see this one?" he asked, pointing to the ring in the back before answering his phone. "Hey, Fee, what's... Marshall, somebody just smashed out our windows," the blonde said, her voice shaking. Marshall almost dropped the ring in shock, catching it quickly. "What? Are you okay?" "I cut my foot on the glass, but Marsh, there's glass everywhere. All the first floor windows are broken," Fiona said, sounding absolutely miserable. "Do you think it was Lich? That he had something to do with this?" "I don't know, Fee, but I'm on my way home right now. I'll be there in a few minutes," Marshall said to her in a calming voice. "Okay." With a scowl, Marshall hung up and looked back at the jeweler. "I'll be back for this," he said, watching as the man nodded. Flipping through his phone, Marshall found a phone number for the window replacement place and dialed them. Marshall didn't know what to think. Ever since their meeting with Lich last month, all sorts of crazy things have been happening to the members of the band. Well, most of them. FP was off the grid again, so Marshall was unsure if he was being plagued with what felt like a swarm of unluckiness lately. Ash's house had been robbed, Moko's tires on his car had been flattened, and now these windows. Marshall knew it had to be him, but he didn't want to frighten Fiona, so he never admitted those thoughts to her. When he returned to the house, he was met with a police car out front. Pulling into the driveway and entering the house, he watched as Fiona swept glass into a pile, all while talking to an officer who was putting away his notepad. Moments later, he left, leaving the couple alone, while Marshall hung up his hoodie, putting his gloves on the side table. "Just sweep everything to the middle and I'll scoop it up," Marshall said, bringing the trash barrel to the middle of the room as he looked around at all of the shattered glass around them. "I told him I thought it was because of Lich. I don't think he believed me," Fiona said, still sweeping. "I called the window guy. He's bringing in some heavy-duty durable stuff, so this won't ever happen again," he said gently, watching as Fiona shook her head. "Marshall, I'm really worried that he's going to do something worse. I don't know what it is, but I have a really bad feeling about this guy. What if he never leaves us alone?" Fiona asked, looking worriedly at Marshall. "We'll figure this out, I promise," Marshall murmured, taking the broom from the blonde and wrapping his arms around her, feeling as she did the same. "I really hope so, Marsh." Pushing a strand of hair behind her ear, Marshall kissed the top of her head before he started sweeping. It had taken what felt like the better part of forever for the window people to come out to the house, and by the time they did it was after 4, and the two had the company of a sick Ignitus to deal with. Like all of the other times, one of the guys stayed over. The first thing that happened was that the couch was immediately taken over. Ignitus had arrived at the house with a pillow, blanket, and a box of tissues. The apartment building he'd been in had had a water leak from the floor above him, and after leaving all his valuables with his sister, he'd made his way to Marshall's place, hoping for a place to sleep off whatever he'd caught. Marshall let him in, easily agreeing to let him stay for a few days so his apartment could be brought up to code once again. Coughing up a storm, he threw his pillow on the couch and was immediately out for the count once he lay down. Fiona watched as Marshall the pay handled the installation guy and the payment for all the windows. She still couldn't get her mind off of Lich and how she was sure he'd been part of this. She had been so lost in her zone that Marshall had to poke and prod the blonde to grab her attention. "Huh?" Looking up, Fiona spotted Marshall. "I said I'm gonna run to the store to grab stuff to make soup. Was there anything we needed?" he asked, watching as Fiona thought for a moment. "Nothing but milk. That's all I can think that we need." Okay, I'll be back then, Marshall said with intentions other than his grocery run. He still needed to buy Fiona's engagement ring, and he wouldn't stop looking until he found the perfect one, and he was sure he had. This was perfect too, because the installation of the new windows would definitely be enough to distract Fiona when Marshall ring hunted. I cannot believe you just did that, Ember snapped as she stormed from the restaurant. Come on, Ember, don't be mad. It was just a joke, Finn said as he followed after his girlfriend. You're always playing jokes, Finn, and I get it. It's in your nature to be a goofball. But do you even remember what day it is? Why I wanted to go to this restaurant of all the other ones we could have gone to? She asked, pinning him with a level stare as she walked, watching as Finn made a face. Amber, it's just dinner. Hearing this, the redhead froze as she stood facing him. No, it's our 5-year anniversary dinner, Finn. I don't even want to speak to you right now, she said as she stomped off down the sidewalk, her heels clicking loudly on the cement. Finn was quick to follow. What are you talking about? Our anniversary is next week on the 14th. Hearing this, Ember could have killed him. Turning, she gave him a deadly glare. Their anniversary was on the 7th. 15th? 11th? Steadily ignoring him, Ember continued walking down the street towards the car. Finn, it seemed, did not handle the silent treatment well. Are you ever going to talk to me again? He asked in an annoyed voice at Ember's feigned ignorance of his existence. Glob, you're acting like such a child. Hearing this of all things from him, Ember quickly whirled around to face him faster than he could comprehend. I'm acting like a child? You used breadsticks to pretend to be a walrus. You somehow managed to make spaghetti come out of your nose, and if that wasn't bad enough, you tripped the waiter with your prosthetic arm, and I'm covered in drinks, so now I smell like a bar. How the hell am I the childish one? She screamed, her temper getting the better of her. I work to support both of us because you can't, and I never have held that over you. But after everything I do for you and for us, you can't just give me one night where we can act like adults and drink and have a good time like the two adults we are? Ember said, digging through her purse, finally finding the car keys and throwing them at the startled blonde. I don't even want to deal with you right now, she said, storming past the car and down the street, leaving Finn stunned in her wake. Should have figured something like this would happen, Ember thought in annoyance as she cut down an alleyway as she made her way towards her apartment. Coming out on the other side, she walked down the sidewalk, listening as her phone began to ring. Glancing at the caller ID, the redhead scowled and put it to voicemail. She didn't want to hear his apologies right now. She was too mad. This always happens. Finn never takes anything seriously. I don't even know why I try. With a sigh, Ember pulled out her house keys and opened the hall door to the apartment building, closing and locking it behind her. Climbing the steps, Ember walked down the hall to her apartment. Kicking the door shut behind her, the redhead pulled off her dress, throwing it into the laundry basket near the door, and carefully pulled off her earrings, dropping them into the jewelry box left to her by her grandmother. Walking to her room, she kicked her shoes off, grabbing a towel as she walked into the bathroom. She smelled like a mixture of beer and mixed drinks, and honestly, it was making her sick. Turning on the hot water and stripping completely, Ember pulled her hair free of the clip, keeping it up, and stepped into the shower, rubbing the stickiness of all the drinks from her skin before grabbing her body wash. In the kitchen, her phone was ringing again, but Ember couldn't be bothered to deal with it. Her mind was on Finn and what they were. The thing was, she wanted something serious. She wanted to settle down and get married and have children someday. And from the looks of things, it didn't seem to be what Finn wanted. Would he ever want to settle down? Or even grow up for that matter? Taking the shampoo, Ember scrubbed her hair. She hadn't cut it in the 5 years she'd been back. And now, as mad as she was, Ember wanted a change. She also wanted to hurt Finn's feelings, too, and he always said how much he loved her hair. Now grabbing the conditioner, she rubbed it through her tresses quickly, rinsing her hair before shutting off the water and grabbing her towel, wrapping it around her petite body. Taking a brush, she ran it through the long wavy red locks and pulled it back, braiding it and tying it off at the end, letting it fall down to the small of her back. Opening the medicine cabinet, she looked around, spotting what she was looking for. Snatching the scissors from the small shelf, Ember grabbed the braid and began cutting through her damp hair until the braid fell to the floor. Shaking out her much shortened hair, the redhead found a comb and began neatening the edges, just like her foreign exchange mother had taught her back in Scotland. She was a little rusty, but she had done what she wanted to accomplish. Shaking out the towel and jumping back into the shower for a quick rinse, Ember rewrapped herself in the towel and walked from the bathroom and into her bedroom. Finn was in deep and he knew it. Ember was pissed and she'd honestly never been this angry with him before, at least not that he could remember, and knowing that she would need her space, Finn decided to go to Fiona's place. As he drove to his sister's, he decided to at least call Ember and apologize. Dialing her number, he listened as it rang through to voicemail. Hey, this is Ember Flint. Leave a message after the beep. Amber, I'm sorry. I messed up, okay? I'll make it up to you and I'll do whatever you want, do but you do have to deal with me at some point today. I mean, I was planning to stay at your place for the week. I'm thinking maybe we should talk about some stuff. Well, either way, call me back. I'll be at Fiona's and Marshall's place. I love you, he said softly, hanging up the phone. With a sigh, he looked out the window. He was really in deep. Pulling up to Fiona's house, Finn stared in surprise, watching as the entire first floor was being fitted with new windows. Shutting off the car and pocketing the keys, he walked up the hedge-lined walkway and knocked on the door, watching as it opened. Oh, hey, Finn, what's up? Marshall was there to greet him, holding the door open and allowing the blonde to enter the room. I'm here killing time while Ember cools off. Man, I really messed up. She's never been this mad at me, Finn said, standing in the doorway of the living room. I swear to Glob, if you did something to hurt my baby sister, I'll kill you, Finn, Ignitus said, sounding terrible, before gagging and scrambling to the bathroom. Almost immediately the sound of retching was heard. What's wrong with him? I'm gonna go with stomach flu, Marshall said with a shrug as he walked over, sitting at the kitchen table. Fiona's upstairs napping. She hasn't been sleeping well lately, Marshall said, sounding concerned. How's the therapy front been going with her? Really well. She's opened up about a lot of stuff to her therapist. I swear, Simona's a miracle worker with how easily she gets Fiona to open up about stuff, he said with a smile. Any news on the thing we talked about? No, I went shopping for that, Marshall said, just in case Fiona happened along. But I had to come back here because some asses broke all the first floor windows. I mean, it's kind of a good thing because now I get to replace all of them with that specialized glass that keeps out UV rays. That and the stuff's supposed to be really durable. The guy let me hit the glass with a hammer and it didn't even crack, so I'd like to see this happen again, Marshall said with a shrug, his mind still elsewhere. I got it, though. The thing's beautiful. But what's going on with you and Ember? I messed up our anniversary dinner, Finn said, pulling out a chair and sitting down. I thought it was next week and ended up tripping the waiter with my arm and drenching her with a tray of drinks. Hearing this, Marshall stared in shock. Geez, man, it's like you want to kill her, Marshall said as suddenly FP piped up from the bathroom. Yeah, or you want me to kill you. Oh, Glob. Blah. Dude, focus on throwing up in the toilet, not killing Finn, Marshall called, listening as his friend grumbled from the other room. I have no idea what to do. I screwed up huge, Marsh. Hell yes, you did. Em's scary enough without being mad anyways, and for all we know, you unleashed the beast from the depths of hell. Just figure out what you can do to make it up to her and go from there. Hearing this, Finn looked at Marshall curiously. Is everything okay? You seem pretty stressed, and not about the window thing. Marshall looked around towards the stairs for Fiona. A few weeks ago, we went to see some guy who wanted to buy out our contract from Nightosphere. Things have gotten really hectic since then, and I think that the owner, some guy named Lynch, has been a part of all of our problems, Marshall said softly, still looking towards the stairs, and Finn understood. You don't want to tell Fiona about this, do you? No, she's already freaked out enough. I mean, she's sure that Lich had something to do with this, but I don't want to confirm that for her. I mean, what can we do? We can't prove that he had anything at all to do with any of our troubles, just that they started after we met with him. And Fiona, she's been so restless lately, she's barely slept. It's no surprise that she's napping now, he said, shaking his head sadly. I have no idea what to do for her. Have you looked up anything on this Lich guy? Online? Yeah, nothing comes up, just that he's the CEO of Bloodrain. I want to ask my mom if her corporate buddy could do a background check on the guy, but the last thing I need is to freak her out anymore, especially after my last doctor's visit. Did it not go well? Now Marshall gave Finn a hard stare, and the blonde knew immediately that this had to stay between the two of them. I stopped responding to the current treatments. The lymphoma has gotten worse. I'm back at late stage 2. Damn, Marsh, don't say it. I want none of it. I'm going to be fine. My next visit is next week. They usually do a monthly wellness check to see where we're at, Marshall said quietly. I'm not expecting any good news from that. I know Fiona is, though, and I don't think she'll take it well with everything else going on. Finn stayed, keeping Marshall company until the window people left. By then it was late enough that hopefully Amber wouldn't want to kill him anymore. Driving to her apartment after bidding Marshall and Ignitus a farewell, Finn stood facing the door to the building, holding a bouquet of flowers, and pressed the buzzer in Amber's apartment, listening as her voice came through the box near the buzzer. "Who is it?" "Finn!" He sat there in silence for what felt like forever before pressing the button again. "Amber, please let me in." To his surprise, though, the door opened moments later, and standing in front of him was his girlfriend, her hair cropped above her shoulders, staring at him coldly. "What?" she asked, crossing her arms across her chest. "Emma, I'm so sorry I messed up our night tonight," Finn said, offering her the flowers. "Finn, I think we need to talk about exactly what we are to each other and what we both want out of life. I'm done with all the childish games. I'm a grown woman with a job and an apartment and a car and bills. I love you, truly I do, but I want a mature relationship. I want to get married and have children and buy a house and do all the things adults should do, and I don't know if I'll be able to do those things with you," Amber said, slowly watching as Finn frowned. "Amber, I love you, and I always will, and if you want those things, then I want them too. Finn, you don't get it. I don't want you to want those things because I want them. I want you to want them because you want them. I think we need some time apart to think about some stuff, Finn," Amber said, taking in the hurt look on his face before closing the door, holding back tears. Walking back to her apartment, she let out a sob. It was for the best because it was something they both needed to think about. Whether they were right for each other, whether they would be together for the long haul. It would hurt now, but at least then they would both know. At least she hoped. Finn felt crushed. What the hell was he going to do? As he walked down the sidewalk to his car, he opened the door and sat inside it, with his forehead against the steering wheel. Finn knew he needed to do something to win her back. But what? Fiona slept clear through to the next day, and when she woke, two things greeted her. The first was the warm comfort of Marshall next to her, and the second was the sound of Ignitus throwing up, which only served to make her feel nauseous. Sitting up, she decided to do something that would hopefully settle his stomach and hers, and once she was downstairs, Fiona put the teapot on the stove, turning it on. Ignitus listened to the sound of Fiona in the kitchen as he hugged the porcelain bowl in front of him. He felt like such utter crap that it was ridiculous. On top of this bug he had, he was also going through withdrawals, having decided to straight out quit the methadone. He couldn't do it anymore. He was tired of always being alone. He was tired of waiting for everything to change when he was the one who had to make the change himself. He wanted to be happy. He wanted to be loved and to be happy, and the drugs weren't giving him that happiness anymore. Ignitus honestly didn't know if he was sick because he was withdrawing, or if the withdrawals themselves had in fact made him sicker. It didn't matter now because he was going to see this through. He was quitting, and that was it. End of story. Nothing could or would change his mind because he was set on this. Flushing the toilet, Ignitus wearily stood walking over to the sink as he splashed cool water on his face before walking back to the couch. Lying down, he spotted a steaming mug of tea and some toast on the coffee table in front of him. Seeing that, he smiled. He as he reached over, grabbing the warm cup and taking a slow sip of the warm liquid before placing it back on the table as he lay back down. He could do this. With friends like this, there was no way he could fail. Closing his eyes, FP lay back, listening to the tinkling sound of Fiona's phone and her gasp. Opening his eyes in time to watch Fiona run by, FP listened as she climbed the stairs. "Marshall, wake up! We have to go to the hospital! Viola's here!" Alright, that's it for that chapter. I'll be right back with another one. I have to take a short break and take my meds and stuff. But I will be back with the second chapter in a little bit. I don't know, like probably like 20 minutes or so. I have to eat something. I'm hungry. So I'm gonna take a break, take my meds, get something to eat, and then I'll be back soon. I'm really glad that Ignitus is quitting the drugs finally. It's really good. So um, and yeah, he has a lot of support, which is always a good thing. And some insane stuff is happening with Lich, so I'm really curious to see what's gonna happen there. This book is insane. Anyway, I will be right back. Of course, as soon as I turn on the camera, I go yawn. Anyway, hey guys, I'm back. And I'm gonna read another chapter. And I just there was this new post on Reddit from someone who had been looking for a plushie for a long time. It was a post where they were so excited because they got like their hands on the plushie that they've wanted for a long time. Supposedly eBay listed it incorrectly, and so they got it, which was really nice, and it was amazing, and there was celebration in the comments. It was posted on the Plushies subreddit, but anyway, it's amazing because I know that feeling of like getting something, because it's an amazing feeling when you get something that you've been waiting for a long time. And I love plushies. You guys know they're my kids, and like I collect them. I love them so much, and I don't just go around buying any old one, but I'm very specific about the plushies that I choose and stuff like that, and so like I'll have a specific storyline in mind when I buy them. But anyway, so just the feeling of getting a plushie that you've been wanting for a long time, and it's an amazing feeling, and I'm really glad have um that I have people on the subreddit that I can share it with and stuff like that. But anyway, excuse me. Anyway, so next chapter. Chapter 78. I have lived, so let me die. She couldn't accept it. Fiona wouldn't. It had to work. It couldn't just not work. It had to work. He'd promised he'd never leave her. He promised. He promised. He said they'd be together forever. This wasn't forever. It wasn't even close. It wasn't even a fraction of forever. It was wrong. This was wrong. Everything was wrong. They were lying. They were all lying to her, to him, to them all. It couldn't be true. It couldn't be. 3 months after his diagnosis that had confirmed that the lymphoma was receding, at 24 years old, Marshall had been told that he had little more than a year to live. After the doctors found several infected lymph nodes, he hadn't responded to treatment, and today, 3 days after that, Fiona learned something else, in a sense, something worse. It was the cherry on top of the screwed up circumstances Sunday. Fiona, 3 days earlier, Fiona had thrown up. She'd already been nauseous, but her stomach couldn't handle this devastating news. She was lucky she was sitting as close to the trash can as she was. Marshall held her hair out of the way while the doctor went to get a nurse to help. Oh, she was so regretting that chocolate chip muffin now that it was coming back up. Fiona, you okay? Marshall asked softly, rubbing her back. Reaching over, he pulled tissues from the box, wiping her mouth and cheeks. Are you going to throw up again? No. With a sigh, he reached over, wrapping his arms tightly around the blonde. Fiona, it's okay. Hearing these words from Marshall, of all people possible, had the blonde in tears. No, it isn't, Marshall. There was no calming her. He was prepared for this. Fiona wasn't. He just held her, letting the blonde cry into his shirt. By the time the doctor and nurse returned, Fiona had calmed just a bit. I'm gonna go talk with the doctor. Go with the nurse and get something to drink, okay? Oh, okay. Marshall's, Marshall watched as she was led from the room and turned to face the doctor who had sat back down at his desk. So level with me. How screwed am I? Marshall asked, staring unblinkingly at the doctor. At first, when you came in those few years ago, we caught it at an unusual stage. It was in between harmless and deadly, to be honest. The cells had started to spread vertically up into the epidermis and into a section of your skin called the papillary dermis. When it reached there, the cancer's behavior changes drastically, and the next step in its evolution is the invasive radical growth phase. We discussed that. Marshall nodded. I remember. This is when the individual cells start to acquire invasive potential, he said, leaning forward and resting his elbows on his knees as he laced his hands together to keep from fidgeting. Exactly. We weren't sure whether they had reached that point at that moment in time. We did the surgery, removed the mass, and put you on screenings. We've recently detected invasive cells in your blood and in your lymph vessels. The doctor said, flipping through the thick medical folder, glancing at the documents within for confirmation. So all in all, I'm totally and 100% screwed, is that right? I don't want to go as far as that, but it's not looking good for you, Marshall, no. There's always many forms of treatment, the man said finally, setting the folder down to look at his patient. What stage is it? Marshall asked. At last check it was early, too. Like I said, there's many options for treatment. What stage is it? You've reached stage 3 on the N2 level. That means you have 3 positive lymph nodes now, the doctor said, sounding disappointed. What are my chances? Marshall asked firmly. It ranges from 70 to 24%, the doctor said in a matter-of-fact voice, and again Marshall knew he was being evasive. Again, what are my chances? You average out at 30%. Fine then, I'll beat the odds again, Marshall said, sitting back in his seat, crossing his arms stubbornly, watching as the doctor looked around anxiously. If you'd like, we do have counseling at the hospital for this, he said, handing the list of psychiatrists and counselors to Marshall, who took the paper, getting ready to crumple it up. He paused, taking note of a familiar name before folding it and putting it into his pocket. So how long would you say I have left? A little over a year and a few months, and that's if you don't respond to the newer, more aggressive treatment we're going to put into place. The side effects you've experienced in the past will possibly increase. With most stage 3 patients, they find hair loss to be a major side effect, along with severe nausea, vomiting, exhaustion. The list can be expansive. All right, I can deal with that. Standing, he sighed. This was not how he imagined his day going when his doctor called this morning. Set me up an appointment with Petrikov. Just so you do know, he's retiring in just a few months. Would you still like to keep him? I know, but for me he'll make an exception, Marshall said softly, turning and walking from the room. I'll call you in a week before the first treatment to give you the date. With a nod, Marshall made his way down the hall to the cafeteria, finding the blonde slowly drinking a bottle of water. Seeing him immediately, Fiona stood walking over and hugging him tightly. What did he say? Fiona asked nervously. You won't like it, Marshall said softly, feeling as she squeezed him tighter. Can we go home now? Yeah, Fee, come on, let's go. The ride back to the house was long and quiet, and the blonde had fallen asleep. Marshall looked over at her and sighed. Fiona looked so tired. It must have been the stress of the day. After a half hour, he pulled into the driveway and stepped out of the car and into the night air. Walking around, he opened Fiona's door gently, trying to wake her with a kiss. Fee, wake up, he said softly, nudging the blonde, who let out a distressed little groan, not wanting to wake. Smiling, he scooped her into his arms, carrying her from the car and into the house, shooing Cake away with his foot as he entered, and closing the door behind him. Over the years, he'd fixed up the old house that had always been his home, and the best improvement so far had been the new couch they bought a few years ago. Laying the blonde on the couch, Marshall walked into the kitchen and started making dinner. Fiona always perked up after a plate of spaghetti. Fiona woke exceptionally warm and cozy, feeling as Marshall kissed her cheek, neck, and shoulder. Smiling, she opened her eyes, turning her head to look up at him. Hey, beautiful, I made dinner, let's eat, he said softly, nuzzling her neck and giving Fiona one last kiss, watching as she yawned, stretching. It smells really good in here, the blonde said, pushing herself up before standing, and following him to the dinner table. I smell garlic bread. That's because your favorite food is for dinner. Hearing this, the blonde squealed happily, throwing her arms around her boyfriend's neck from behind and kissing his cheek. Marsh, you're awesome, she said with a beaming smile. Dinner passed quickly, and after the pair settled down on the couch, Fiona snuggling up to Marshall as he wrapped her tightly in his arms. Marshall, what's gonna happen? Fiona asked softly. This discussion was already making her stomach nervous, and she could feel it flopping around. I'm gonna fight for as long as hard as I can. I won't stop, Fee. I promise you that. Good, just don't give up. I need you here, Marsh. And all of these discussions make me feel so nervous and sick. It's a scary thing, Fiona, but don't be scared. You're always the brave one. Hell, you were a forest guide. Your job was to bring people to see wild animals in the forest. That's pretty badass, Fee. You of all people shouldn't be afraid. I'm scared for you, Marshall, because you're too thick-headed to be scared for yourself. Hearing this, Marshall grinned. No truer statement has ever been spoken, he said simply, pulling her closer as the movie continued on. Once again, the blonde fell asleep. The sun rose next morning, and Marshall was jostled awake by the sudden jerking motion of Fiona, scrambling from the couch and rushing into the bathroom. In the time it took for him to sit up, he could hear the blonde retching and quickly got up to help her. Fiona, are you okay? He asked, looking into the bathroom to see her head first in the toilet and crying. Spaghetti tastes awful coming back up, she whimpered, suddenly tensing as once again she threw up. Marshall quickly pulling her hair out of the way. Maybe you should set up an appointment with your doctor. You could have that same stomach flu FP had, Marshall said, turning on the sink and filling the small cup with water. The blonde coughed, wiping the tears from her eyes, and accepted the cup, rinsing her mouth out. never thrown up so much in my life. This sucks. Oh, Glob. Her body tensed once again, and Marshall began rubbing her back. Breathe in through the nose and out through the mouth, Fee, he said, continuing to rub her back as the blonde dry heaved. Can you call them now for me? She whimpered, watching as Marshall nodded. No problem, babe, he said, grabbing his cell and dialing the doctor's office. Fiona shakily stood. There was nothing left in her belly to throw up, and watched as Marshall talked on the phone, taking occasional glances at her as she brushed her teeth. By the time Fiona finished, Marshall hit the button ending the call. Tomorrow at 9 is the earliest they've got, so be up bright and early, sunshine. Okay, I'm gonna go lay down again, Fiona said, breathing slowly and making her way back to the couch and wrapping herself in the blanket she'd previously escaped from. Marshall grabbed a small trash bucket and put a new bag in it, setting it in front of the blonde just in case she needed it. Already she'd fallen back asleep and it worried him. It wasn't like her to be so exhausted. Going upstairs, he grabbed his guitar. He'd been working on a song for the last few months. What bothered him was that usually the lyrics came to him so easily, but for this one, it was such a battle. But now he knew how he wanted it to go. Strumming his guitar, he began to sing. Tossed by the tempest of life, a victim to storms I contrive, it feels like the best is behind and I can't go back. Oh, he wished they could go back, before the diagnosis, before everything. Fiona was so much lighter back then. There was so little worry on her face and in her heart. Now she worried all the time for him. The eye of the storm satisfies. I watch the chaos from inside, but the wind turns and I realize that I can't go back, that I can't go back. It can never go back to the way it was before. Too much had happened to ever go back. So I go, pressing on through the wind and the waves. If I drown, let me go, so that you can be saved. It don't matter if people remember my name. I have lived, so let me die. Oh, Glob, Fiona, of all people, this song was a message for her. Please, please, any holy power listening, please don't let me drag her down. I fight against what lies beneath. It's just my will against the sea. I've never been one to give in. He would fight with everything he had for her. He wouldn't give up. Of all the virtues I have lacked, the need to fight has been my anchor. I could never ask for you to save me. He couldn't do that to her. That would be far too much. So, know your will could never calm the seas I'm braving. It would break her. Fiona was strong, but not strong enough to handle this. So I go, pressing on through the wind and the waves. If I drown, let me go so that you can be saved. It don't matter if people remember my name. I have lived, so let me die. If it came to it, she just needed to let him go, to save herself. If it was going to kill her, she needed to let him go. He wanted her to. He needed her to. Let me die. Let me die. So I go, pressing on through the wind and the waves. If I drown, let me go so that you can be saved. It don't matter if people remember my name. I have lived. I have lived. Fee, please, please, I need to do this alone. I need to fight this alone. I can't keep letting this hurt you. So I go, pressing on through the wind and the waves. If I drown, let me go so that you can be saved. It don't matter if people remember my name. I have lived. I have lived. He didn't care about the fans. Just her. Just Fiona. Please. Let me die. I have lived. Let me die. I have lived. Let me die. Closing his eyes, he strummed the final notes of the song and collapsed backwards on the bed. This was a song created from the very depths of his soul. His dad told him that there was always going to be one that held so much meaning that it could create or destroy an empire. The real question to Marshall was, what would his song do? The day had passed quickly, and Fiona was happy to find that her nausea was gone for the most part, but didn't want to push her luck. Getting up, she made some toast and tea the way her mom would make it for her at her parents' home, and walked back to the couch with her snack. After finishing the small meal, Fiona looked around, noticing the distinct lack of Marshall's presence. Putting her mug down, she'd headed towards the stairs, hearing a simple strummed melody making her way to their room. Fiona paused, listening as he hummed along with the music. It was the first duet they'd ever sang together. Closing her eyes, she listened as he hummed along before the song abruptly stopped and he sighed. Fiona opened the door, watching as he leaned up. Hey, Fiona said softly as she made her way to the bed. Hey, you, how you feeling? Marshall asked, moving over for the blonde. Better, lots, she said, picking up the guitar and moving into the side so she could lie down next to him. Have you had anything to eat? Yeah, I made some toast and tea. Good, I don't want you going hungry because you don't think you'll be able to stomach something. Okay, Marsh, Fiona said with a teasing grin. I'm serious. I know, she said. If I'm still feeling yucky tomorrow, will you drive me to the doctor's? I thought I was driving you anyways, Marshall said again, making the blonde smile. I love you, Marshall. I love you too, Fiona. They lay there together for quite a long time, just being, and as odd as it sounded, it was just what both of them needed. Marsh? Mm? If you could have anything in the world, what would you want? That's an unexpected question, he said softly, thinking. Then finally it came to him. I want to hear my dad's voice again, like talking. I've heard his music, but his singing voice and his talking voice are different. I'd want to hear his voice again. I'd want to hear him say, he sighed. That's impossible. What about you? He asked, looking towards the blonde. I'd want you healthy. Nothing for just you? Fiona laughed softly. That would be for me, Marsh. And I think I know of a way that you can hear your dad's voice again. Hearing this, he sat up, leaning over the blonde. How? Did you know they made a memoir? It has a few of his concerts and quite a few interviews. Marshall, you've never seen it? No, I didn't even know that they made one. With that said, Fiona stood up, pulling Marshall by his hand. Come on, let's go. Where? My parents' place. Dad has the DVD, the blonde said, still pulling him. The drive took almost 3 hours, but they finally arrived at the familiar yellow house with a white picket fence. Fiona didn't even bother to knock. The car was gone and the lights were off, meaning neither of her parents were home. They were probably at Jake's fighting with Lady's parents over who was going to do what with the new baby. Unlocking the door, Fiona led Marshall to the family room, having him sit on the couch, while she dug through the DVDs, finally finding it and putting it in. Marshall was a bit more than nervous. What if his memory of his father wasn't the same as how it used to be? What if he was different than he remembered? Marsh, relax, Fiona said softly, taking his hand and squeezing it. With the remote, she went straight to the interview, selecting one in particular, knowing that out of all of them, this was the one Marshall needed to see. It was the usual stuff, music, his life, but this time Fiona watched Marshall instead of the TV as a little dark-haired boy ran over and climbed on the chair where his father was. Last time she'd been so intent on watching Marshall Lee that she didn't notice the look on his father's face. He looked beyond happy to see his son and smiled warmly at him, helping him on the chair with him. I remember this, he said softly, staring intently at the screen. Once again, Fiona squeezed his hand. Hey, Marsh, what are you doing down here? You know Daddy's busy right now, kiddo. I know, but I missed you, Daddy. Fiona continued staring at Marshall, who honestly looked close to tears. That brings our interview to its conclusion, unless of course there's anything else you'd like to say? The young man asked, looking earnestly at Marshall and his son. Here it was. This was going to be intense. Yeah, there is. This is for my son. Marshall, in this interview, you're 5 years old. You're my pride and joy, and you always will be. Hearing this, Marshall squeezed her hand tighter, and Fiona watched as he started to shake, his breathing picking up. I can't tell you what's going to happen in the future. We might fight over big and little things. I might have to leave on concerts, and you might get mad at me for it, but I want you to know that everything I'm doing, I do it for you. I love you more than words can express, and even now, as I hold you in my arms, I know this won't last. There will be a day when you don't fit on my lap anymore, where you don't run to me with your problems, because there will be a point in your life, and there always is, where coming to your parents for help is uncool. His eyes burned, and the look on his father's face made him laugh weakly. It was the you'd better pay attention to what I'm saying because it's important look. But please know more than anything on this earth, I love you the most. You and you alone have a special place in my heart. I love you, son. Fiona watched as the screen slowly began to darken, and immediately the remote was pulled from her hand and the movie was rewound for mere moments before it began to play again. She'll place in my heart. I love you, son. Fiona looked over and watched as Marshall rewound it again. My heart. I love you, son. She didn't dare look up. She felt that in some way she would be invading his privacy. After the fourth rewind, the blonde stole a glance, and once she did, she was transfixed. Tears were pouring down his face as he continued rewinding the DVD and playing that one small forward sentence. I love you, son. Finally, he dropped the remote and buried his head in his hands. I love you too, Dad. Fiona wrapped her arms tightly around him, feeling as he pulled her close. But before she could speak, he did. Thank you. Fiona, thank you. I never imagined, not in a million years, that I'd ever hear him say that to me again. Thank you. he said through his tears. They sat for a long time, Marshall's head buried in her shoulder, and Fiona's fingers running soothingly through his hair. They waited another hour for her parents, but knowing she had a doctor's appointment in the morning, they made the ride back to their place after leaving a note on the hall table. Fiona woke again, feeling more than nauseous. She didn't even remember how she got into the house. Crawling free from Marshall's embrace, the blonde scrambled down the stairs into the bathroom, once again emptying her stomach. This was so not math. Moments later, she felt Marshall's hand rubbing her back soothingly as she coughed into the toilet. Right now, she was an emotional, pukey mess and wanted nothing more than for the stomach flu to just go away. She was going to kill FP for this. After her bout of sickness, Fiona dressed quickly and climbed into the car waiting for Marshall, who, after finishing dressing and locking the house, got into the car, thankful for the very tinted windows on the car that allowed him to drive safely. The drive to the doctor's didn't take long, and together they sat in the waiting room until finally Fiona was called in. Standing and fighting nausea, she walked into the office. "So tell me, what seems to be the problem today, Fiona?" the nurse said with a smile. "My friend has this awful stomach bug, and I think I caught it. I wanted to be sure if this is what it was. I've been throwing up for the last few days now. My back is killing me." Oh my god, she's pregnant. Okay, any other symptoms you think I should know about? None that I can think of besides being dead tired lately, Fiona said, sitting on the bench. "May I ask a few questions?" the nurse asked, writing this down. "Sure. When was your last menstrual cycle?" "Last month. I'm due for it next week." "What are your birth control methods?" the nurse asked, typing this in. "I used to be on the pill, but I kept having strange side effects, weird dreams, mood swings, all that kind of stuff, so we've been using condoms," Fiona said as the nurse continued to type. "Okay, any changes in sleeping patterns?" the woman asked. "Nope, unless you count my need to puke for the last few days of change." "Only in the morning?" "It varies from day to day." "Uh-huh. Is there any chance you should be pregnant? Is there any chance you could be pregnant?" the nurse asked, suddenly shocking the blonde. "There shouldn't be. We're very conscious about using at least some form of protection," Fiona said seriously. "Yeah, but that stuff doesn't always work completely." "All right, I want to run a few tests, so we'll do a throat culture and a urine sample and draw some blood, okay?" All right, what comes first?" she asked, watching as the nurse walked over, grabbing a long cotton swab. "A throat culture to check for bacteria comes first. Then I'll give you a cup to pee in, then we'll draw some blood for the labs. Now open wide." Fiona always hated this part and gagged when her throat was swabbed. Me too. Moments later, she was handed a cup and directed to the restroom, and with a sigh, the blonde did as she was told, leaving it on the counter in her room. They took her blood pressure and after tying her arm with a rubber band, drew some blood. "All right, I'll bring these samples right over. You'll have the results from the urine and the throat culture in a few minutes, okay?" "Yep." Fiona sat leaning against the wall, waiting for the results of her tests. After almost 5 minutes, the nurse walked back in, looking slightly apprehensive as she fiddled with the papers in her hands. "Well, we know the cause of your symptoms," she said, looking at her notes and catching Fiona's attention. "So I've got that stomach bug thing, right?" she said, shaking her head. She really was going to have to kill FP. Actually, no. I'm not quite sure how to tell you this, especially since you have been aiming to avoid this kind of situation." Fiona felt her heart skip a beat. "Your symptoms are due to pregnancy." Hearing this, Fiona froze in shock. "What? But I can't be pregnant. There was never a time we didn't use protection." "Maybe when you stopped using your birth control," the nurse suggested. "It can't be. That was almost 3 months ago, and I've gotten my period twice since then. Besides, we used condoms immediately afterwards. I was supposed to come and get the shot next week," Fiona said, struggling to understand how on earth this could have happened. "Well, there's a possibility that the condom broke as well. They're only 98% effective when used properly, and to be honest, most people don't use them properly, or there's a one-time slip-up." "Are you positive? Like 100% positive?" Fiona was grasping at straws here, but this couldn't be right. This could not be right. "Well, we have to take 2 urine tests, and both were positive. But we can have the blood diagnosed here." "Please do it." Her heart was pounding. It was racing violently in her chest as if it were trying to get free. Yeah, you're already dealing with one kid who has 3 kids, 2 toddlers and a baby. All right, but the chances of that test being negative are slim to none, especially with 2 positive urine samples. The woman said, walking from the room, leaving Fiona in absolute tizzy. What was she going to tell Marshall? How could she ever tell him, especially with what the doctors told them just a few days ago? The very thought simply made her sick. Finally, after another 20 minutes, the nurse re-entered. I'm sorry, but the test is positive. You're pregnant. You're pregnant. Since it's April, the baby, should you choose to keep it, will be due around late December or early January. My best guess is that you're close to 2 months along right now, but I think we should schedule you another appointment in a month so we can be absolutely sure of the age of your baby. I'll set you up for the third on Friday. Is that all right? She asked, flipping through her calendar. Yeah, that's fine, the blonde said in a daze. Quickly standing, Fiona walked from the examination room, touching the wall to keep her balance, swearing that she was as white as she felt and trembling. What was Marshall gonna say? Would she tell him? She couldn't. Her mind was racing and her head felt so dizzy. Fiona barely registered that she was back in the main lobby until she felt hands resting on her arms and saw Marshall's concerned face. Swimming in and out of focus as her world quickly spun. Fiona, are you alright? What's wrong, Fiona? His hand was on her cheek, tilting her face up so he could look at her, and even that she couldn't focus on. Her world was darkening, quickly slipping away. The last thing she registered was the falling sensation, and Marshall shouting her name. Marshall was concerned, beyond concerned. She had walked in normal and walked out looking like a zombie, pale and shaking. She didn't even seem to know where she was. Grabbing her arms, gently he held her in place. Fiona, are you all right? He asked softly, rubbing her arm before bringing his hand to her cheek so he could look at her. She blinked slowly as her eyes focused on his. What's wrong, Fiona? He watched as her eyes rolled into the back of her head, and the blonde collapsed. Marshall quickly grabbing her and holding her upright. Fiona! Marshall sat in the chair next to the hospital bed in the emergency room. They said it had been exhaustion, dehydration, that Fiona had collapsed from sheer exhaustion, that the only problem was that they underestimated him and how well he knew his soon-to-be fiancée. He'd seen Fiona exhausted before, and it looked nothing like this. She'd been in shock, terrified and in complete shock. Marshall knew something was up. He didn't know how he knew, but he did. The doctors wouldn't tell him anything. They said there was nothing to tell. Marshall knew that they were hiding something, and he was going to find out what it was, even if it killed him. Okay, we're done with that. That's nuts. So, I did not expect that, I mean, until they started discussing the cause of her symptoms. Then I was like, oh shit, she's pregnant. And yeah, she is. I never even thought of that. But, she said she'd been throwing up the last few days and her back was hurting, like, a lot. That happens in pregnant ladies, I guess, I suppose. I've heard of it before, like, I've heard people say, "Oh, their back is killing them due to the pregnancy." So yeah, that's happened before, and her last couple menstrual cycles have been normal. But for one thing, it could have been just spotting, and for a second thing, we don't know the actual like exact age of this baby. And I guess the question is at this point, are they going to keep it? And if so, how is she going to handle this with Marshall? And how are they gonna explain this to her parents because her mom's gonna friggin' kill her? And they've already got one kid who just went along and had three babies in a row. So now Jake and Lady already have two toddlers and a baby, and I don't know if there's more babies coming, but perhaps I guess this is something that happens in the show too. Like I don't know if they have babies in the show or how many they have or whatever, but like I'm guessing there's I don't know. But I don't know if they're going to keep it or not, and how is this all going to play out? And we're still waiting for Marshall to propose, so maybe that'll happen in the next chapter. I don't know. Apparently, he said he found the perfect ring. So did he said he'll be back for the ring? So did he like buy the ring, or is he still looking for the perfect one? I think he got the ring, but he hasn't proposed yet. So how's that going? Probably because Fiona's been sick and their windows got smashed. So that's been taking up a lot of time. And I hope nothing happens with Anderson, Lich, and like their baby or something. I don't know. I don't know if they're gonna keep it. This is all. I have a lot of questions. So I guess they can only be answered by reading further, and I will be back with another chapter in a minute. I have to use the bathroom and a couple of other things. But I should be right back with another chapter. So see you guys in a minute.